We're now going to be leaving the original room from the first floor, and we're going to walk up the staircase. This is the original staircase of this house, and you can just imagine that almost 300 years ago people actually walked up to this up these stairs. This is sort of a unique staircase because in the early days, they say, most staircases when you went up the stairs bore to the right, but this staircase you go to the left. So we're going to go up these staircases, and we are now going to enter the two original rooms on the second floor of this old house. And we have devoted this to the bedroom of Thomas Ward. Now remember, Thomas Ward came to this house in 1788, and he had a wife, and then he had 2 children. And we believe that this is the type of bed he probably would have slept in. And as you can see, it has this. This is rope. So consequently, this is called a rope bed. And you heard of the saying, sleep tight, don't make the bed bugs bite? Well, of course, what would happen if the rope was too loose and it fell down? Naturally, then, the person who was sleeping in the bed would almost fall to the floor. So you have to keep this rope very tight. And we have here an instrument which is made out of wood, in which you would put the rope here in the slot, and you would twist it and twist it and twist it so that until the rope is very tight, so the person could sleep here. Now people, or the children, always ask, well, did Thomas Ward have a mattress? Well, actually, if you read any biography of Betsy Ross actually made mattresses out of horsehair. And so we would assume that Thomas Ward had a mattress, because we know when Thomas Ward died in 1839, we have an inventory. By an inventory, we mean everything that he had in this house at the time of his death. And amongst the inventory he had was linen sheets and linen pillowcases. Well, of course, why would he have linen sheets and linen pillowcases? Because if you remember from when we went from the first floor, West Haven grew the flax and had the flax mills. And what does what material comes from the flax? Well, linen. So it was logical that Thomas Ward would have linen sheets and linen pillowcases. Now, in the early days too, sometimes a bedroom was called a chamber. And so we have underneath the bed or near the bed something that's called a chamber pot. Now, remember that in the early days, there was no such thing as a bathroom here, not in the house. We had, of course, an outhouse outside, but this is New England, and it's cold. And can you imagine that every time you wanted to use your bathroom, you had to run down the stairs, cross over the lawn, and get to the outhouse? So here we have the chamber pot. Now, of course, the chamber pot would have to be cleaned. Right now it's nice and clean, but who do you think would clean the chamber pot? We think it had to be the children. They had to clean the chamber pot. Also, if you had no bathroom, not only didn't you have a toilet, but you had no water. And where was the water? The water was in the well outside. So again, someone had to get some water and bring it into the house. And so therefore, in this house, we have this. We have the water pitcher. Now, this would be, we would again think the children or a child would have to walk down the steps, go to the well, get the water, and put it in the little basin here. And it's a nice basin, as you can see. so that their parents, when they got up in the morning, they would have at least a little water to wash their hands and their face. There also was no closet here in this house in the early days. Now, we also know that Thomas Ward, when he died, and when he died, actually, in 1839, it says that he had this house, a barn, and he had 8 acres of land. And he also was listed as having an old quilt and some blankets. Well, when the United States was having their big bicentennial celebrations, many people in town started to make quilts to represent the era and also the history of the town. And amongst them, we have this quilt. Now, this quilt was made by a class of first graders. And it was done by Alice Butler, who happened to be the member of our board, and she was a teacher in the school. Now, because it was first grade, they couldn't actually sew the quilt. So what she did, she had them cut out the quilt and paste it. It was very unique. This quilt was made by a group of people in West Haven for the bicentennial celebration. And they were trying to represent a great period of history of West Haven and also sort of styling it after the seal of West Haven. And of course, we have the particular person here, which is our famous Thomas Painter. Now, Thomas Painter was only about 19 years old, and he was at the shoreline. And there he saw the British ships coming ashore. Actually, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning on July 5th, 1779, when he spotted these ships coming. But not only the ships, but then he noticed that the soldiers were disembarking and they were getting onto small boats. And because it was high tide, the boats were landing on our shore. And then also a shot was heard. And so then Painter, Thomas Painter, then alerted the town that the British had landed. Now, this quilt was presented before a committee, and it was rejected. And I happened to be there when it was rejected. Rejected why? It has his spyglass, and he has his looking, all the water. You can see the water of our shoreline, but it was missing something. Remember, Thomas Painter saw these ships in the harbor, and there was no ship in this quilt, and they refused it. But we were very happy that somehow or other it came to us, and we have it, and we're proud to hang it here in our house. Also now, these are the other quilts that we have, but we also have in front of this quilt an authentic, of course, we're all still being decorated for our holiday, so we have Christmas trees and so forth here, but normally in this particular bedroom or chamber, we normally don't have all this decoration all year long. But this we have to show you is an authentic Mammy's bench. This is where, if you look here, you see this guard railing? Well, this is where the baby would be placed. The person, or the mammy, would sit here and rock the baby. There were children here in this room, and of course Thomas Ward had children, and other people had children who lived here had children. So we do have a lot of toys and things that pertain to children. We have the rocking horse and an early carriage. But we also have this early dollhouse, which was around the late 1800s here. Now, in this house, we have these reproductions that people have loaned us. Mary and Earl Downey made these reproductions of these houses. This, she made it in the form of an inn, and the one behind you, she made it as a form of what she considered what a colonial house would look like. And it's interesting because many of the boys and girls say, well, if there wasn't any water in the house, how did anyone take a bath? And well, when she made this house, it's interesting because she made a bathtub out of, looks like metal. And of course, you know, the blacksmith was a very important person in the town, and it could conceivably be that he made a little metal bathtub for the boys, for anyone to take a bath. Also here, if you look here, I don't know if anybody remembers paper dolls. Well, in those days, at least here, it's not a paper doll that you cut. It was made out of cloth. And here you would cut out your items from this cloth. And you would actually make your own doll. And this is the doll here that is made. Then we're looking at the fireplace. Now, when Thomas Pickett came into this house, he renovated and made a different mantle. But not only did he do that, he added something. He added a coin. It's down here. And what kind of a coin did he add to that, the base of his fireplace? Well, he added a, now remember, this is around 1910, and the British came way back in 1779, and here he's putting in his mantle a British coin. And it's a British coin of King George V. Now, Queen Victoria's son, Edward VIII, had just died, and King George V was having his coronation in 1910, and this is the coin of King George V. We have wallpaper, which was common in those days. There's always wallpaper in the houses. And we also have a picture that was made by Diane Podrat. And this is an old historical home in West Haven, but it's not our home. It's the Warner House that was on Jones Hill Road. There were other, remember, historical homes in West Haven, but this is the only one that actually has been preserved. This is the second original room of this house. And we have devoted this chamber, shall we say, to William Wallace Ward. Now, William Wallace Ward was one of the original 5 Ward boys or brothers that we have met at various times in this house. Now, William Wallace Ward was a bachelor, he never married, but he built for himself this huge, huge house, which was on the corner, right across the street from us, actually, on the corner of Campbell Avenue and Elm Street. Now, we know that house through generations, more modern generations. We know it as the Phelps House because it was occupied by a Dr. Phelps. And later on, Marjorie Phelps used the house as a nursery school for young children. But that house was sold and was torn down in 1978. And now on the corner of Campbell Avenue and Elm Street, if you look out, even look out of our windows, you'll find that it now is replaced by Burger King. So when one goes to eat in Burger King, you can at least say you're in the property of William Wallace Ward's house. And they say that a little section of the wing of that house could still be seen in some of the houses on Elm Street. But also in this picture, which is very significant for William Wallace Ward, is this. This is part of the New Haven, West Haven Horse Railroad. The railroad was incorporated in 1865, and William Wallace Ward was listed as the superintendent of the railroad, of the horse railroad. and his brother Israel was one of the founding members. The horse railroad went from Savin Rock all the ways to New Haven. And here you have the actual route of the horse railroad. It goes from, you got it from Savin Rock, down here, down through the center of West Haven, all the ways into New Haven. As we know, the horse railroad went all the ways down to Savin Rock near Long Island Sound. And amongst the items on the Savin Rock was this particular picture of the Savin Rock House. The Savin Rock House, however, burnt. It had a huge fire in 1870. And it just so happens that, as remember when we were talking about the young girl on the first floor, Hattie Smith, who wrote the diary when she was 16 years old? Well, in her diary, she also mentions the fact that she went to see the burning of this particular house. She recalled the destruction of this famous building in Savin Rock. And this is a map of about 1868. Now, William Wallace Ward was active in this horse railroad from its inception of 1865 until he left, because he was also a member of the board of directors, and at one time the board of directors made a decision. They were going to convert the horse railroad to electricity, and the cars were going to be run by electricity. And that was in 1892. And at that time, William Wallace Ward resigned from the board. Now, he resigned predominantly because his health was deteriorating. And we know the fact that prior to his leaving the horse railroad, he wrote a letter to his niece, Henrietta Heitmann, asking for the rental of a room in this house. And for 3 years prior to his resignation, he actually lived in this room. He lived most of predominantly all the weeks of the three years. In the first year that he was living here, he was joined by his nephew. His nephew happened to be the son of his brother Israel, remember, who was one of the founding members of the horse railroad. And this person that came to live in this house and then in this room, his name was Henry Heber Ward. So we're now introduced to another Ward family member. Now, this Ward person was a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, and he was considered to be one of the most brilliant naval officers of the time. He actually was active